My name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a if you like this book, then read this book video. I absolutely love doing these videos because I love finding books that will give me the same feeling and or vibe as another book, and I love being able to tell you guys so you can also feel the same way. So if you liked one book or if you've read one and you want the same vibes and or feelings, you should definitely read the other book. So I have a long list. I've been making this list for the last month or so, basically since my last video, and every time I read a book that reminds me of another book, or I'm like, oh, this gives me the same vibe, oh, I think a lot of people would like this book if they haven't, whether it's underrated or anything like that, I've been making that list. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in because I have a lot to talk about in this video. So the first one is a very hyped book. It's a very hyped book. I read it last year. I absolutely love it, and that is Divine Rivals. So if you've read Divine Rivals, then you need to read Lovely War by Julie Berry. So actually, I read Lovely War probably like 4 years ago now. This is a historical fiction book, and I didn't think about pairing these two books together until I looked up the blurb for this book, and the new blurb says that if it's for fans of Divine Rivals, and I was like, actually, yeah, that makes sense. I always say that Lovely War is so unique. It's historical. It's told by the Greek gods. There's two couples that you're following in this book that takes place during World War I, and the Greek gods are kind of telling their story as well as telling these two couples stories. And in Divine Rivals, it's that historical, whimsical, a little bit of fantastical aspect in it, and they're so unique, but they're also still different. Like they have similar crossovers with the historical times and all of that stuff, and it's set in a wartime. There's a couple that's like trying to be together against all odds type of a thing. And I just think, honestly, like when I read this book, I was sobbing. And the second book, so this is a completed book. You get the completed story in this book. And this is the first in a duet, but you can read both books. They're both out. The second book's Ruthless Vows. And when I was reading Ruthless Vows, which is the conclusion to this duet, I was crying. So they both give me that emotion. I got very connected to the characters. I got very connected to the couples. It's very raw. It's very real. It's very much set in a wartime. So there's a lot of raw and real and traumatic things that happen to the couples, to the people. You see that lives are lost and everything like that. There's twists and turns. And I loved these two books. I think that if you have read Divine Rivals, you definitely need to read Lovely War. And if you are someone who are like in the minority, if you like, that has read Lovely War, that has not read Divine Rivals, then you need to read them because I love both of these. They're so freaking good, so freaking good. Another pairing I have is two books that I read both in the last half of this year. So if you've read Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto, which is actually extremely popular, you need to read The Deepest End of Love by Lucina Connie. So I love these two books for different reasons. Now, Not Another Love Song is kind of like a romance between two musicians. They're both musicians in an orchestra together. You see that he is like obsessed with her. He's a hero obsessed with her mind, body, and soul. And while The Deepest End of Love is not about musicians in the slightest, they do work together in the same kind of occupation. It's a little bit more forbidden only because she is an intern and he is her internship supervisor. So she's interning at kind of like the same place where he works part-time. He is a professor, but he's more of like a research professor, but he's never like her direct professor, more just a supervisor. So it's a little bit forbidden. There's an age gap in this. There's not really a huge age gap in this one, but it gives me the same vibes because our hero in this one is obsessed with her mind, body, and soul. Like he is the older one in The Deepest End of Love, but he's so in awe of her brain, and at such a young, I say young age, but she's 22 in this book, that like he's like, I wish I had the same mind that she did at 22. He's like 31, I think, and he's like, she is so far for her age. Like she is so just like, her brain is a masterpiece. And then there's a quote in this book that I will never forget, and it says, how do you tell someone you're falling in love with their mind without freaking them out? And that's literally the epitome of this book. It's the same thing with this book. He finds her so attractive, mind, body, and soul, and I loved it. They give me the same vibes because it's like obsessed. They're both like obsessed with her, and I loved it. I love both of these books. They were both 5-star reads, so I want more people to go and read them. So if you've read Not Another Love Song, you need to read The Deepest End of Love, and if you've read The Deepest End of Love, go read Not Another Love Song. I love both of these authors and these books. Another fun comparison is if you've read Butcher and Blackbird, which went around all last year, and I gave this book 5 stars, then you need to read Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. So this one is a very popular dark romance that's going around Book Talk, Bookstagram, YouTube, all of the above, and they're both giving the same vibes. Now in this one, Butcher and Blackbird, they're both serial killers who kind of meet in they're trying to kill the same person basically, and they're vigilantes. They go and kill other serial killers because they're bad people, and so they have that little darkness in here, but the banter and the humor in this book is what reminded me when I was reading this book. So in this book, it's a masked like TikToker. He posts like thirst traps and stuff like that, and you see that he has a fan, Allie, who's a trauma nurse that he is kind of like starts to stalk, and is kind of becoming obsessed with her, and they have to kill someone, if that makes sense, in this book. And it's just interesting how the vibes of both of The Butcher and Blackbird reminded me when I was reading Lights Out. Like, it really was just so similar in the vibes of the darkness, the humor, the dark humor. I'm someone who I have very dark humor. I don't always, you can't really tell that online, but I have really dark humor, so I was laughing out loud at both of these books, and I loved them. They're on the darker side of romance, but I will say that if you want to dip your toe into it, definitely try out one or the other of these books, but they definitely gave me the same vibes, and I love them. I love both of these books. They were such a fun time. So another book is very heavy with the mental health rep in books, and I love that. So if you've read Little Lies by Helena Hunting, then you need to read The Keeper by Bella Matthews. So Little Lies is a college romance, hockey romance. They grew up together. They both have anxiety. Their parents have kind of kept them away from each other because they think that they're contributing to each other's anxiety, but that is not the case. Basically, I love Little Lies because it shows how two people who have anxiety and or mental health disorders can have a very functioning relationship. I love this so much. But in The Keeper, you see that they have a trauma bond. They have a trauma bond in this book. They also have a trauma bond in The Keeper by Bella Matthews. They witnessed something when they were younger. Their mother's stalker kind of like took them hostage, and they were both just like holding on to dear life to each other. And now that you see that they're older, they're living in two different cities. He has these like anxiety dreams that come up where he's like didn't rescue her in time, even though he really did. So he has that like connection to her, and you see that they have a second chance at that connection. The story, you know, plays out a little differently in both books. They are hockey. In The Keeper, he's a professional hockey player. In Little Lies, he's a college hockey player. But I still loved both of these books. I had the best time with them. I love any type of mental health rep in books, and I think that these two did it really well. So then they're both a very fun time. So I would suggest picking up one or the other if you haven't read either of them or one of them. Another book I have is one that has gone around Bookstagram that I saw, and that is Wolf. So if you've read Wolf or you haven't read Wolf and you've read Where We Started by Ashley Munoz, you need to pick up one or the other. I got such small town MC club vibes from both of these books, and they were so good. I read Where We Started last year, and I finished out the series this year. The whole series is very good for small town MC club vibes with like alpha male heroes, and Wolf is exactly that. While the second book isn't out yet, this is the only book that's out. I love this cover. It is giving very much small town vibes, motorcycle club vibes. Our hero is very unhinged. This is a little bit darker in the romance and the things that are talked about, while this is more romantic suspense. So that would be the only difference, is that if you love romantic suspense, this doesn't have a lot of it. It has a little bit of it, but Where We Started in the whole series has more romantic suspense. But I love both of these books, so if you've read Wolf, pick up Where We Started. If you've read Where We Started, pick up Wolf, because I think a lot of people would enjoy them. So everyone constantly always asks me, because Credence by Penn Douglas is one of my favorite books of all time, and I love this book, what is similar to it? Oh my god, I need a book that's similar to it. And I've had a really hard time finding a book that is similar to Credence because it is so unique in its own way. Basically, our female character, Tiernan, she goes to live with her step-uncle, who she didn't really know existed, and she finds out that her step-uncle has two kids, two boys. They are her technically step-cousins, but she's never met them before, and it is interesting. She has a thing with all three of them, but she chooses one at the end, and I love who she chose, okay? Now, in the era of why choose, we have a lot of why choose, right? This is not why choose. She chooses one. I love when she chooses one, and I love when that person she chooses just so happens to be the character that I love, okay? And so the only book that I can think of is Five Brothers by Penn Douglas. You can't, like, Penn Douglas does it so well. Like, literally, Penn Douglas does it so well, okay? In Five Brothers, she has a thing. I wouldn't say a physical and sexual relationship with all five of them, because it's definitely not always sexual and or romantic in that way, but she has something with each of them, and she goes through all of the brothers, and she does choose one at the end, and I love who she chose, okay? So this book just came out this year. This book has been around for quite a while, but if you have read Credence years and years ago and you want that same vibe without rereading it a million times like I have, pick up Hwy Brothers. It was great. The audiobook was fantastic. I loved it. This also has really good mental health rep. Actually, both of these books have really good mental health rep. In this book, it's with our female character. In this book, it's one of the brothers. It's the one that is chosen at the end. That's not a spoiler, but yeah, I love it. I love this so much. I love both of these so much. Now, the last one I have is because I'm in my romantic suspense era. Who would have thought that me, Tori, Novel Life, would love romantic suspense when I've said I hate romantic suspense because it makes me anxious. But I read Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder about a month or two ago, and I loved it. I love the whole our female characters in witness protection program. She goes to this ranch. She's living on this like distillery ranch. It's like they have a distillery on the ranch, but she lives with the family and she's hiding out there and yada yada yada. She starts to fall in love with the grumpy guy that runs the distillery and is part of the family, and it's great and fantastic. There's a lot of romantic suspense elements, but it's also spicy. If you've read Bourbon and Lies, you need to read Broken Beginnings by Cleo Evans. Now, I know Cleo Evans is mostly known for her monster romances, her different paranormal creatures and stuff like that, but Broken Beginnings is actually a really good romantic suspense book. It's a little bit spicier than Bourbon and Lies, but I still really loved it. Basically, our female character, she comes to this super small town that she grew up in after 10 years. She witnessed something horrific at the beginning of the book, and she just needs to hide away and get away, and so she goes back to the town. She swore she would never go back because her bully, basically, that bullied her when she was in high school, still lives there. And so he's trying to basically get back into her good graces. So it's a little bit of groveling because he really was a little shit when he was younger. I really enjoyed Broken Beginnings. It was a book on my October TBR. And it took me a little while to finish because I was in a reading slump, but I finished it and I really loved it. So these two definitely are two that I think a lot of people would enjoy, especially if you love romantic suspense. Read both of these. Read both of them. They're really good. So those are all of the books that I have that if you've loved this book, then read this book. If you have any comparisons, or if you have any books that if I've read this book, tell me I should read this other book, let me know in the comments down below. If you've made it this far, leave me a whiskey glass emoji for the whiskey distillery in Bourbon and Lies. Leave me a whiskey glass in the comments down below. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see some more content like this for me. I post new videos 3 times a week on Tuesday, Friday, and Sundays. I always have a weekly vlog or some type of vlog on Sundays, so make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!